that time. And I had Elton Akins, who was an excellent running back and an excellent athlete. I had him over for dinner one night. And we sat down, this is before we played Navy in '83, and I said, Elton, I'm going to go to the Wishbone. We're going to be a triple option team. And you are going to be the quarterback that leads us back. You will always be remembered as that quarterback that leads us back to winning ways at Army. And he said, well, that's fine, Coach, he said, but I've decided that I'm going to concentrate on academics next year and I'm not going to play football. So I was back, and that's true, right? And so I was back looking for a quarterback. And we had two possibilities. Nate Sassman, who was a defensive back but had played option football in high school, and Rob Healy, who was our quarterback in '83, along with Bill Turner, a drop back passer. Well, those two men did a great job for us, both in '84 and '85. Sassman led us in '84, but in the Air Force game out here, and I could be assured that he'll bring that up, he played every play but 3 plays in that game and led us to that victory. And then he came back in '85 and was a great leader for us on the field and made a lot of key plays. He got injured, and the third quarterback that was important was Torrey Crawford, who was a sophomore. Came out here against Boston College, 45-14, 503 yards rushing, and really did a super job. It's already been mentioned. I wanted to mention Rob Healy, because all this stuff about him not passing the football. He was, as has been brought out, he was responsible for both of the touchdown passes in the Peach Bowl. He pitched the ball back to the halfbacks who hit the pass. And one thing I'll say that you may not know about Rob, but in that period of time as a starting quarterback, he had the best one-loss record of all the quarterbacks. Sassman, Crawford, you name it. He had the best record as a starting quarterback. You know how I know that? He told me that. Rob Dickerson isn't here, and I wish that he was. He was a 4-year starter for us. He started 46 football games, which I would think is still, even with the expanded schedule, got to be a record for the number of games played. His senior year, after being a fine tight end, he moved in and played offensive tackle the last 5 games, which was a real sacrifice on his part. A little later on, Doug Baker did exactly the same thing, moving in from tight end into tackle. But Rob, whenever I think of Rob, I think of going to Japan to the Mirage Bowl. And we had a big banquet. The Japanese put on a huge banquet for our team, and they served sake. And, you know, you had to be polite because the Japanese. Rob was sitting next to me. The sake went around, and pretty soon Rob had his arm around me and said, "Jimmy, all right tomorrow." Never forgot that. And Kurt, who gave that short introduction here earlier. Kurt Bitter, Lunatic Fringe, leader of the Lunatic Fringe. Kurt, to me, and what the story I'm going to tell now is maybe a little bit humorous, but it's what I see all you guys being about and like as cadets, as officers, and as men. We had different senior captains each game, and Kurt was one of our captains in the early season. And we had the quarterback luncheon on Monday. He stood up and he said, you know, I don't know what all he said, but the point was, we're going to win the game. We're going to win the game. And we did. So we go through the season. He's now acting game captain against Air Force. And we went out, and Kurt stood up before the game, and he said, we're going to give it our all. It's going to be a tough game, but we're going to go out there and give it our all. And we didn't do very well, as you know, because Air Force put it to us pretty good out there. Well, it's the end of the season now, and Kurt was elected one of the captains, and we're down there in the Peach Bowl, and they had a disco party for the Illinois and the Army players. And the coaches and the captains spoke. Well, one of the things I always believed that as players is that you never said anything to encourage your opponents, and you never said anything bad about your teammates. That was sort of a rule we had. Well, Kurt went up, got up on there, Illinois players here, Army players there, all the people there, and he says, I only have one thing to say. We're going to beat you, Illinois. And as he walked, this is as he walked past me, leaving the podium, he says, is that definite enough for you this time, Coach? Right? That to me is the type of guys that all are. Don Smith, a great All-American football, a legitimate All-American football player. I can still see him down there in that 4-point stance coming off the line. And I remember being out at Buckner in Infantry Week, and the rains were coming down, and we all, about 15 of us, slept in a tent. I mentioned that to Don the other day when I talked with him on the phone. Doug Black. You know what qualities Doug Black had to be a football player? Well, Bob Caslin came to me and he said, Doug Black is the best boxer I have in my company, and he should be out for football. And I said, well, I don't know whether boxing and football necessarily go together, but he said, you should give him a chance. So I met with Doug and I said, what position do you play? He said, fullback or linebacker? I said, well, we've got 10 teams of linebackers, because we did, and only 8 fullbacks. You be the 8th team fullback. And that's the way he started out that spring. And then in watching practice films, I see this guy hitting in against the first team, tough as heck. And I said, who is that? And they said, that's Doug Black. So we moved him up a couple teams and up a couple more. And by the season, of course, he was our inside attack. He made the offense go. And if you watch triple option football today, as academies are still playing, fullbacks don't gain 1,000 yards. Doug gained 1,000 yards 2 years in a row. And that's what Doug Pavick, there's a lot of defensive backs here tonight, but Doug Pavick, I first heard of Doug Pavick when I took the job here, and I got a letter in the mail from Minnesota, and it was from a lady who said, my son is not getting the right chance. He is a great football player. He played on an undefeated football team, 11-0 at some wherever the school was, and you should give him a chance. So that brought my attention to Doug, and he didn't play because of his mother's letter, because he was a legitimate football player and made some key interceptions, like one out here in the end zone at the end of the Air Force game that one year. So, but a great player. So you knew that because I told, but you never knew that until a few years ago, did you? When all right. Scott Spellman and Benny White, sort of take them together because they were both in and out of the games, making key catches. And you know, it's darn hard to have too many key catches when you never throw the ball. But they did. Scott Spellman with his runs out here against Air Force, the one at Rutgers the year before where he stepped out of bounds. I mean, that said, he was a great receiver for us, and certainly a great, ran those reverses. That 41-yard reverse here in the Air Force game was a big thing.